like a bell cut.
Hello and welcome back to the channel where once again it's time for another Sega Saturn review. Now today's game won a poll recently on my channel to become the first light gun game covered in a review. I am of course talking about Virtua Cop, which saw a release originally in the arcades in September of 1994 before coming out on the Saturn in November of 1995 over in the US and Japan, and it was followed by a December 1995 release over here in the PAL region. So the story for Virtua Cop sees a veteran detective in the police department uncovering an illegal gun-running operation, and he traces it back to a powerful crime syndicate called Evil Inc. He's compiled a large amount of evidence and he's ready to take them down, but unfortunately he is discovered and he is murdered. Thankfully though, some of the evidence manages to make its way back to the headquarters, where a special task force led by the policemen Michael Rage Hardy and James Smarty Cools must face that organization led by Joe Fang and his followers Kong, the King, and the Boss. So heading on to the main menu, you'll see we've got arcade, training, option, and ranking. They're all self-explanatory except ranking mode, which is where you try and take down the game on a single credit. A very difficult challenge, I won't deny. Heading into options, you'll see we've got things like difficulty, gun looseness, number of lives, continues, the sight, the audio, sound test, gun test, and key assignment. Onto the second page, we do have a few more options. We can select the language, select mirror mode, turn gun select on, and also check our bookkeeping stats. So if you're new to my channel, what I do is I talk about each game in the looks department, the sound department, its gameplay, content and lifespan, whether it's still worth playing today and if it can potentially make our Sega Saturn top 10. Now I'm not going to deny the first time I ever played Virtua Cop, I was pleasantly surprised by how good this game looks for a 1995 console release. I genuinely believe it's one of the very best looking 3D games of that era on any console. It really does look that good. The scenery, the environments, everything looks clear and crisp. It really does look fantastic. Even the 3D polygonal characters, in my opinion, look very good for 1995. And remember, this isn't that long removed from when we'd seen Virtua Fighter come out, and it looked so underwhelming. And then we got this, Sega Rally and Virtua Fighter 2, all within that short space of time. And they did the Saturn masses of favors because they showed that the Saturn could do 3D games very, very well. Now, in terms of the variety, the 3 different locations that you explore are all suitably different, which keeps you interested in the visual presentation as well. Even the explosions within this game, for such an old Saturn game, don't look too bad. There isn't too much mesh effect going on anywhere within this game at all, and I feel it runs very well as well. There's no slowdown, very little polygonal glitching in the game either. It just simply is, in my opinion, a testament to what the Saturn could do with its 3D abilities as well. So overall in the looks department, Virtua Cop for a 1995 Saturn game is very impressive. So moving on to the sound effects and music next, and Virtua Cop is a very good sounding game. I feel all of the sound effects within the game are top stuff, whether you're shooting down the enemies are dying, or there's explosions or vehicles. The game sounds very, very good. The only downside for me is the quality of the voice acting for the bosses when they come into play, because it doesn't sound good. It's got that muffled 90s sound that a lot of games still had when this game came out. But to compensate for that, we've got some fantastic tunes which accompany us on our journey in the game, because I feel the tracks for Virtua Cop are very, very strong. They are perfectly suited for this kind of action game where you're going around gunning people. They keep you motivated for playing along. Now, it's difficult to sort of describe that, but the best thing I can do is just give you some examples so you can listen to the tracks for yourselves. So moving on to gameplay next, and the game's got a very straightforward flow, typical of light gun games from that era. We've got 3 stages to select from at the start of the game, with the idea being to progress through all 3 stages until you come across the final boss and try and defeat him without running out of lives and continues. In terms of our HUD display, you can see we've got our score in the top corner, we've got our gun selection in the bottom left, we've got our number of lives and credits. It's very well laid out and it's easy to understand now. As you progress through the levels, you can power up your weapons. There's a variety of other weapons on offer, such as the shotgun, the automatic, the rifle, the machine gun. There's plenty to choose from, and it gives the game a little bit of variety. Of course, some of these guns will have unlimited reloads if you don't get hit. Other guns will just simply run out when you run out of ammo, and like I said, if you get hit whilst using these guns, you will go back to your default pistol. You can also collect extra lives as well. They are very sparse around the game, but they are there to be collected. Now, in terms of the way it actually controls with the Saturn light gun, this game plays brilliantly in my eyes. I feel the Saturn light gun is a fantastic light gun, one of my absolute all-time favorites. It's a perfect weight, it's very responsive and accurate, and Virtua Cop plays brilliantly with this game. You simply shoot the screen, and then once you run out of bullets, you point away to reload. It's very simple, but it plays so well, and it is so fun to play with the Saturn light gun. I do feel if you haven't got a Saturn light gun, or if you're trying to play this on a more modern TV with a D-pad, the game simply doesn't have the same enjoyment levels that it does if you're using that Saturn light gun. So overall, in the gameplay department, Virtua Cop, a very fun game. So moving on to content and lifespan next, and like I said previously, there are 3 stages to play through, and each one will take around about 10 minutes to complete, giving us a total playthrough time of around about 30 minutes. There are no alternative routes to explore within this game. It's really a case of go from A to B to C, and then you'll see the entire game. In terms of additional modes of play, we've obviously got ranking mode, like I said, which is a tough challenge if you want to try and complete the game on a single credit. We've also got the training mode, where we can go in there and hone our skills. We can actually do this in 2-player and face off against each other to see who comes out on top with a greater score. So in terms of giving us a little bit of extra content, it is there, but unfortunately, lifespan of these games was something that wasn't their strongest point when they came out. So many arcade games from this time came home to consoles, and they just didn't really have enough content to keep people playing for long periods of time, and unfortunately Virtua Cop falls into that category. It's the kind of game that you'll pick up and play for 20 to 30 minutes every few months. If you've got a friend, of course, it's got much more long-term appeal because you can always try and beat each other's scores and that kind of thing. But without a friend, I do feel its lifespan is even more limited. So overall, in the content and lifespan department, not that strong. So like always, that leaves us with our 2 final questions. Is Virtua Cop still worth a playthrough today, and does it make our Sega Saturn top 10? Now, without a doubt, Virtua Cop is still a thoroughly enjoyable, all thrills experience that is well worth playing today. If you just want something to pick up and play for 20 to 30 minutes, gunning down relentless waves of enemy, then you can do much, much worse than Virtua Cop, because it is still a top playing game. Definitely one of my favorite light gun games of all time. Now, does that mean Virtua Cop has enough to get into our PAL top 10? Like I've said already, it's a decent looking game, it sounds good, and it plays great, and it is still great fun to play in this day and age, despite being almost 30 years old. But unfortunately for Virtua Cop, its downfall is the same that many other Saturn games from this era had, and that's a lack of content and a lack of lifespan. There simply isn't enough here to flesh out the experience. It's pretty much over once you've only just started. 30 minutes and then you'll want to turn it off, basically because there's no more content, and also because your arm is going to be aching as well. You can see our Saturn top 10 for the PAL region going up the screen as we speak, and it's pretty much a who's who of top quality titles on the system, and it is going to take some really decent stuff to get into that list. But of course, these are just my thoughts and my thoughts alone. I'm always interested in hearing everybody's opinions on all of the games that I review, and Virtua Cop is no different. So let me know your thoughts on Virtua Cop down below. And like always, I'll be back in the near future with another Saturn review. Goodbye for now.